Hello, and welcome back to Key Comic Universe. Today we'll be talking about how to grade lower grade books and some common definitions, stuff to know, and stuff to look for. So before we get into it, please like, comment, and subscribe. If you're not already subscribed, I would highly recommend it. I do awesome videos on almost a regular basis. And you can also check me out on Instagram at Key Comic Universe, where I do a bunch of other comic related stuff and also do comic sales. So starting off, low grade comics. What does that mean? So for me, in my previous videos, I've defined what I consider high grade, mid grade, and now I'm going to be talking about low grade. So if you want to see my definitions on those, feel free to go and check that out. But for low grade, I consider it pretty much any book under a 5.0. So like 4.5 and lower, I consider low grade. And usually low grade isn't the toughest aspect of comics to grade. Usually it's pretty obvious. Mid grade, as I mentioned in my previous video, is much more difficult since you're trying to find that middle ground between low and high. Luckily, low grade, a lot of times it's fairly obvious. So I'm going to be giving you guys examples, going to be going over different books, and explaining what makes a book low grade. So starting off, we got Thor 225. Now, this book looks really nice, and if you know what MVS means, you'll understand why this book is low grade. But it's a pretty nice looking copy. This book would probably be a mid grade if it wasn't for a single flaw, and that is it's missing its Marvel value stamp. So any book that's missing a Marvel value stamp, I categorize as a 0.5. Now, I know that other people might have different views, but is an integral part to the book, part of the history of the book, and typically it'll come out as 0.5 or a qualified grade. And qualified grade is basically when a book is nice enough, presents well enough that it's above that grade of a 0.5 despite having a piece missing that's part of the book. So that's kind of a little bit of an important definition, a little bit something important to consider, since if you're ever on like on eBay or you ever submit a book, if it comes back with a green label, it's a qualified grade. Next is that like with missing coupons or other missing parts, that can also count against the book and make it low grade automatically, since anytime a book is missing a large amount of coupons, large pieces out, anything like that, the book can end up being a low grade. And by can, I mean it will. Try and be nice about it, but that's just how it is. But that's the first example, and I hope that's a little bit helpful. And in talking about missing parts, I'll use two examples. So first up, I got a Vault of Horror, and I believe this is issue number 30. And it is a remainder copy. So back in the day when books didn't sell on the newsstand, the newsstand would cut off the top third of the cover and send it back to the publisher for basically a refund. So you'll see these books up here online, and they are also considered low grade since they're missing a pretty integral part of the book, which is a third of the cover, which will make these books automatically low grade for remainder copies. Fairly obvious, fairly straightforward. Another example of books where they are low grade and missing something is books that at first, obviously low grade, but this book is missing the back cover. It has large pieces out, thus it will become low grade since any book without back cover is automatically a 0.5, and this book would already be low grade due to the large chunks out of the cover and large tears and other issues. So talking about that, we'll move on to another example. And the next example I have for you guys is books with one large defect that doesn't automatically make the book a 0.5, but that large defect does lower the grade severely. So for example, and let's just pretend that there is no other flaws with this book except for the one I'm about to talk about. So the book has a near complete spine split. Not all the way, the top staple is still attached. The spine isn't fully split or anything like that, but the majority of the spine is split. So if we were to ignore every other defect, this book would still be low grade due to that one large defect. So large enough defect like a large spine split, large tear out of the cover, let's say the book is severely like, well, how I'll put it, has severe issues outside of that, then the book will be considered low grade, because these severe issues cause the book to not be as desirable, cause the book not present as well, or the book can present really well, but due to that large defect, the book is still low grade. So just because a book looks really nice, one big defect can completely ruin the grade. So like, let's say, you find the most beautiful copy of, I don't know, Avengers #1, and it's just an amazing copy. It's just a perfect copy. And then you get home, you pick a, you flip over the book, and let's just say a quarter of the back cover is missing, or someone took a bunch of hole punches to interior back cover. That book will be low grade, despite how nice it looks from the front, how nice it presents. Due to that, the book cannot get a high grade. So not all the time is where like low grade means the book's ugly and it's awful, but a severe defect, even if it's just one severe defect, can and usually will put that book into the lower grade range. So I'll give some more examples, as well as some other things that will put books in a low grade. So I'm going to use the next book as an example and help to describe this. So this book is low grade. It isn't the most best looking copy. It isn't perfect, but it's all there. It's all nice. Well, not all nice, but it's all there. The book is complete, but there's enough accumulated defects where the book is low grade. So sometimes you'll have like a low grade book where there's one major defect or two major defects or something like that. Other times you'll have books where it's tons of defects. Like not just 1, 2, or 3 that makes it low grade, but like accumulation of minor defects to moderate defects that pushes the book's grade down. So with this book, there's a lot of small creasing, medium-sized creasing, and even some large creasing. There's tears in the spine. The staples are starting to become loose, not detached, but starting to become loose. And the cover appeal, like the eye appeal of the book, how the book's cover looks, just isn't as nice as you would hope for a reading book. So due to that, the book ends up winding down into the low grade due to these accumulation of defects. And now you have a book that's complete with everything still there, or most of it still there, and that book can come back to 0.5, 1.0, 2.0, whatever it may be. It can still happen even the book is all there. A lot of people think, the only reason a book will be a 0.5 or 1.0 is because of a huge, severe defect or something missing, but books still get down there, even if, overall the book is there. There's enough issues on the book that cause that to happen. So some examples could be like severe water damage, like really severe, or like some other liquid that permanently stains, ruins a book, or a book that gets soaked in water and the pages get stuck together permanently over time. So those issues, it can become a permanent, basically a permanent issue for that book. And because of that, you end up with a low grade book. And now low grade is a lot more common in books from 1960s and earlier. Now you can still find low grade 1970s books, obviously 1980s and onwards, because there's always going to be a book from a specific year or specific issue number that is low grade. So, and that's like an almost guaranteed thing. So with low grade, with these older books, it's a lot more common. So you'll see a lot more of those, and it's a lot easier to tell. And so now I'm going to move on to my final example. And this is going to be the example of the book looks really nice from the front here. I want to take it out of the case, or out of the bag, I should say, since it is encapsulated. But this book looks really nice from the front, and bear with me for a second while I deal with this. But this book looks really nice from the front. Here we go. This is Fantastic Four issue number 48. This copy presents amazingly. I'm going to just show you guys all of it. And then look at the grade. Good page quality, off-white to white. That's very nice. It's a 3.0 though. Well, this book doesn't look like a 3.0. It looks way better than 3.0. This book must be at least like a 4.0, maybe a 5.0. If I person clean this book, who knows what will happen. But, and here is a but, This is why you always check the back of your books, why you always check the interior, and why you always make sure that you look through your book multiple times. So, this book is amazing. The spine is intact. Staples are attached. Everything is firm. But then you flip over the book, and you have this. You have what appears to be a coffee stain or some type of stain where, and I want to point it out just in case, right there, where something has happened to the book that is permanently a part of the book. There's also appears to be other types of issues. I'm going to point those out as well, where there's other debris or even like soiling, which won't be likely to come out in a lot of cases. There's also more staining. Up here, we have some type of stain or some type of defect that is very ugly to the eye. It has removed some of the ink or covered it up. And then you can also see page overhang. You can also see where the book has kind of like, what's it called? Anyways, the book is not perfectly like flat or even, and I couldn't think of the word. I'm bad with words sometimes. Sometimes words are just too hard. But because of those issues on the back, and not the front, because the front, if this book's front matched the back, this book would be guaranteed higher grade. I would predict at least a 4.0, if not better. But because of the back, and because of those accumulation of defects on the back that are severe enough, it is warranted that this book becomes a 3.0. So, now we're going to talk a little bit more about just kind of low grade in general. So, low grade does make the book very, very unattractive in many cases. Not always, but often will make the book unattractive. Now, low grade isn't always bad, because as I mentioned, there can be like that one big defect, but the rest of the book is near perfect. And honestly, in those cases, those are the types of books you want to go for. It's ones where, and in my opinion, of course, is where it looks really nice, but that one defect does knock it off. But you have a really nice readable book that presents well, and in that case, it's more, as other people have said many times, and many people, you want to buy the book, not the grade. So, that's also an easy way to save some money. Like, let's say you can't afford a VF copy of a certain book, but you see a copy of that book that looks to be in VF, but has a spine split, or there's severe staining on the back, but not on the not on the interior, not on the cover. Like, for example, this book, where, it doesn't affect overall eye appeal from the front. Also, in my opinion, as long as the book is readable, I think it's still worthwhile. Like, high grade is always nice. Everyone's always going to love high grade books. I love high grade books. But sometimes low grade is just a better financial option. And sometimes just the better way to go about picking up a book. Plus, starting off in lower grades, you can work your way up to that higher grade copy over time. Instead of, forking out all of your money in one go, then having money issues, and then being, in some cases, stuck with a book. So, that's kind of like my kind of outside thoughts for low grade, not talking about strictly grading. Also for low grade, and this is going to be really important, is that as you get lower in grade, that one or two severe defects usually become more prominent. Usually, not all the time, but usually. So once you see a certain type of defect, like a spine split or something like that, you will be able to tell where the book is at, despite all the other defects that might be apparent. If that one severe defect is there, you can almost pinpoint exactly where that grade is at. Also, another thing about low grade, if someone is selling you a low grade book, whether it's online, in person, whatever, and they list it as low grade, maybe the book presents much better, or there looks to be something off, always ask for more pictures. With low grade, if they're just describing it as low grade, you could be picking up a book with missing coupons and other stuff going on, or issues that affect readability. So you want to be clear on what exactly you're buying. You don't want to end up in that position where you're buying a book, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh no, I didn't know what I was buying. They described it as low grade to me, but I didn't take a look inside, or I didn't take a look at the back cover. And that is very important. This is something that I've gained a lot more, wary of, with buying books. And not necessarily because it's happened to me a lot, but because I've seen it a lot, is just always making sure you have enough pictures, making sure that you can check out the book in person. Once you really trust the story you're going through or really trust the person you're working with, you just always want to be on top of things. You want to make sure, hey, everything lines up. Also, for grading, there's great references out there for low grade. Low grade is, once again, one of the more obvious things that you can grade and be able to figure out. And I think, honestly, if I were to say, if you're going to start grading, where would you start at? And I would say it would be either high grade books or low grade. I would not start out by just grading like mid grade or start out there, because, you want to learn the basics. And I think a lot of the basics you can find in high and low grade, and you can get more specific on grades as you go. I think starting out with more of a generalist perspective and working into the more minute defects and minute grades, you're going to be able to find a lot, you're going to be able to flesh it out a lot better. And that's just kind of my thoughts on grading. That's where I start at. I start out just with the generalist approach, saying, okay, this book's in like the VF range, or this book's in the fine range, or the very good range, or however you want to go. And I think also another important thing with grading, and this is something that I've noticed over time, and I've gotten better at doing it, is that you want to include in a listing, if you're looking online, you want to look for books where it's describing both the numerical grade and the letter grade. So for example, let's say you're online, you're looking at a book and someone has it as a 5.5 fine minus. That's why I also like to see, because, whether or not you understand only numerical or only letter grades, you're able to at least understand one. So you get more collectors. Also, you're being more specific with it than someone who just puts up VF range or 8.0 range or something like that, where it's really hard to tell, well, is this book a 7.0 or is this book an 8.5, 9.0 range? Those are just always good things to look for. And also, with using comic book grading language, that's also really important. I would say, if you're back in the 1990s, early 2000s, or the inception of grading comics, getting your books encapsulated, I think it would be fine just to use only a letter grade. But nowadays, some people only know one or the other, or know one better than the other. So it's important to understand and know both, and be able to use both accurately. So that's just another thing that people should look into, and something that's very important in my opinion when it comes to grading. This is actually a final video, since I kind of broke it up into just 3 videos for this series, but before you go check out the other ones, I can make more specific videos in the future where I go into more detail or talk more about certain grading issues. I just recently did a video where I talked about misconceptions of grading, so if you guys are interested in checking out that video or checking out any of the other videos I've done on grading, please do. And if you guys want to see more of this type of content, like talking about grading, talking about, comic grading misconceptions, all that type of stuff, let me know. I'm always happy to talk about that type of stuff. I've been grading for many, many years, and it took me many, many years to get good at being able to give clear descriptions. And maybe I don't present, in a video the best, but when I'm doing grader notes, when I'm doing any type of grading, comic book grading related thing, I take it very seriously and have prided myself on grading accuracy as well. Anyways, that's it for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys all in the next video. I hope. Better be there.